Hello, everyone. Russ from the West Ham Network. Hope you are all safe and well. Happy Thursday. No, Wednesday. Sorry, bins went out today. I should remember that. Wednesday's bin day in the Bun household. What day is your bin day? Let me know in the comments below. There we go. That's some great content. If you're new around here, give it a like, give it a comment, give it a share, give it a subscribe. I found some old merch. Look, remember that? My Hammers 11. We've actually got some really good ex-player My Hammers 11s coming up in the next few weeks. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of them. There's some good ones. But today I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. That's no disrespect to the man himself, but I'm going to talk about Harry Maguire. And I'm going to talk about why I'll be happy if we sign Maguire. Now, this is not right. Let me out from the outset. This is not gaslighting or anything at all. This is my opinion, and it's changed. It has changed since when we were first linked to him. I was thinking, oh God, but actually, I've had a think. And actually, I don't think it'll be a bad signing, but it's too expensive. That's the caveat. Now, the interesting thing about Maguire is obviously, in terms of the timeline, we have had conversations with Man United. We apparently had one bid for Maguire, one bid for McTominay about a week or so ago. It was on the Friday. Was it on the Friday? And then the whole thing of Alvarez came in terms of Fabrizio Romano saying that we'd agree personal terms. But apparently that had all happened. And then we have come back in with a £60 million joint offer for Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire, England international, Man United centre-back, and the former captain of Man United. Now, in terms of the two bids, the McTominay bid was almost thrown, disregarded completely. They've been wanting around sort of 50, so about 45, 50 million potentially for him, whereas the Maguire bid, maybe there's a bit of a tickler. There's a bit of a tickler, as I call it in the sales trade. Originally it was 20, and then it went up to about 30 million. I still think 30 million pounds for a 30-year-old centre back is a lot. I do look at someone like Thiago Silva, who went for 33 million, I want to say, to Chelsea at the age of 30. I can't remember how old he was at the time, but it was well into his 30s, if not even his mid-30s, and was arguably the best player for Chelsea the first season he joined. Now, as I said, the conversations with McTominay have sort of said, no more, you're going to have to sort of spend more money. Maguire, maybe. Now, Maguire was very much adamant that he was not going to sign for a side that didn't play Champions League football. That was his sort of what he wanted to do. And obviously there's been other sides. Chelsea are looking at him. Everton are looking at him as well. But by all accounts, the Maguire camp is now more open to a move to London Stadium. Now, why has this happened? Well, it could happen that he assumed other sides were going to come in, bigger sides maybe than West Ham, and they haven't. Maybe he's had a discussion with intermediaries at West Ham. We know it all happens. We know it happens. How can you agree terms with a player without actually agreeing terms with the club, like we did with Alvarez? Same with he who should not be named the former captain. So maybe there's been discussions about his role at West Ham potentially coming in, where he fits in the team, and clearly Moyes is a fan of Maguire, what he can bring. Same as McTominay. Maybe he's had a discussion with Ten Hag, and Ten Hag's like, right, you're not the captain anymore, and you're gonna be on the bench. You might get a dozen, maybe 20 games in all competitions, but you're not first choice. And in fact, if Maguire did come to West Ham, I think they'd go out pretty much straight away and buy Jean-Claire Todibo from Nice, who is a guy that we've been linked to about 40 million quid. So there's that. I think Mr. Southgate might have had a word with Mr. Southgate as well, because this is a big year, particularly for those coming to the twilight of their England careers and any international careers, really, in that it's a Euro tournament. The chances of Maguire could make the World Cup in 2 years' time if he stays fit. He's only 30, but he is one of Southgate's ever presence, one of his stalwarts. But if he's not getting regular first team football, Southgate, there's other players coming in. There's a lot of younger players. Chalobah is getting, he could get some game time at Chelsea, and Stones, and there's a lot of players who could easily take Maguire's place in the squad. And then maybe in the first team, maybe he won't be in the first team anymore because, but who knows? But he needs first team football. So that might be why he's potentially a bit more open, warm to a potential move to the Europa Conference League winners. Obviously, we've got European football next year as well, not Champions League, but the one below in terms of the Europa Conference. So that's a good thing. And I also think from West Ham, but it's obviously, I always say that it takes two to transfer. Well, it actually takes three to transfer, but it doesn't sound so nice. But on the West Ham side, Moyes is, he's a real concerted pursuit, particularly for Maguire. And you got to be thinking why. And that was interesting. That's why I sort of digesting sort of that in my mind and trying to process it. Now, there's obviously several reasons why. On paper, Maguire is an England international. He's a captain. I mean, we've got his stats here. They're impressive stats. In terms of career, stats. He's over about 500 first team games all in. He's, obviously he got the goals there, but he's not really a goal scorer. But he's played in excess of 200 and something Premier League games. He's got experience internationally, 57 caps and 7 goals. So there is there's a guy that, you are not crap. You cannot be crap if you've played 57 times for your country. If you played once or twice, you've had a purple patch. You've done a Ricky Lambert. You've had a good season. But Ricky was very good anyway. But you know what I mean? It's like if you have once or twice, maybe, but not 57 times, you don't become, a world record breaking defender in terms of £80 million from Leicester to Man United. Man United would not touch you if you were shit. Unfortunately, the way Man United play is very different to the way Leicester play, and arguably all these other clubs, which are actually more in line with the way West Ham play. Man United play a very high line. West Ham play a very deep line. And despite the fact of us wanting to play a higher line and squat, and push forward and, and chase down and press, we know that's not going to happen under Moyes. He's a defensive first type manager. He'll play a very deep line, and someone like Maguire would fit in nicely. Now, he would not leave Man United for £190,000 a week or something like that. Obviously, you'd have to take a massive pay cut, 70 grand, 75 grand, probably about to 125. He'd probably be, the top earner, but still, he would have to take a massive pay cut. But he wouldn't leave unless he's guaranteed first team football, because there's no point, because he'd be on less money. So it's about getting first team football. So how does he fit into the Moyes system? I don't think he upsets the apple cart in terms of Agard and Zuma as a two. So my only then conclusion is he'll be going back to a back three. Now, obviously, with a back three, probably most of the Moyes' apart from obviously winning the European trophy, but in terms of the league, was on the basis of a back three. Remember, Aaron Cresswell had a renaissance really under Moyes in terms of playing in a back three. And I remember when Arthur Masuaku, he was integral to that side. So much so, I remember him coming back from a international break with Congo early, and we were all shitting ourselves in case he was injured. What a bizarre world we lived in there. But I mean, for me, it's the whole thing about, if we got Maguire in, we'd go back to a back three. Well, there we go. Something like that. Again, you'd have Maguire in the middle, Zoom on the right, and you have probably Soufa on the right hand side and Emerson. Now, unless we go out and buy, a new left back or a new right back, that's probably it. Obviously, we know that Zuma's going to get 10 games injured at least this season, because that's pretty much the average for Zuma. So if that happens, they'll whack in Tilo Kira. He can go in there, and maybe even some games Zuma might be there and Kira might go right wing back, if they want some pace down the right hand side. So that's how we're going to work. I think that's definitely a given. Plus, on top of that, you think Alvarez in the middle, protecting the back line. He is an out-and-out CDM. Arguably, he should be named the former captain. He wasn't towards the end a out-and-out CDM. We know Moyes. We know Moyes' job is pretty much on a knife edge. If he starts poorly this season, he's out. So you can see why he wants to get generals. He wants to get, a tight defense, pack out the defense, and hit on their counter attack. So I would imagine you'll see some rapid players we've been linked with coming through the next 2 to 3 weeks, just to complement, particularly on the left-hand side. That's why someone like Carlos Borges would have been brilliant, in my opinion. So I think there's that extra protection that Alvarez will literally patrol. He'll just sit in front of that back three and just shore that defense up. Our success in the league was formed on a strong defense and nicking the odd goal. Now, we didn't. A couple of times we got turned over last season, but again, not massively. But we weren't scoring that one goal to win the game, so it would be a draw rather than a 2-1 win. I remember so many games coming out of that, particularly the season before last, thinking, "How the fuck did we win that game?" Do you know what I mean? That didn't happen at all last season. Having lost 20 games, it's proof that defense needs shoring up. So I think actually, Maguire coming in shores that defense up, whether you like it or not. He is. And a back three of Aged, Maguire, and Zuma. Tell you what, that is a wall. That is a brick wall. And as a forward, I'd probably fancy my chances on a foot race on the right-hand side. But playing a deep line, and actually, if we look back and look at how, and again, there's been a lot of parallels with Craig Dawson. Obviously, Craig Dawson came in, wasn't fancied at all. In fact, the Watford fans were laughing at us buying him, saying, thank you for buying, our worst player. But again, in the right situation, in the right side, Dawson went from zero to hero, to a cult hero on the potential and the peripherals of an England call-up. And who would have guaranteed that when we signed him? We thought this is a penny pinching move, and it was one that actually paid off. Now, the difference, obviously, with Maguire is he's going to cost 10 times more, at least, than Craig Dawson did. Well, are you going to get 10 times the player that you are Craig Dawson? No. Are you going to get a very solid player who's got Premier League experience? He's got leadership experience. He's played in Europe. He's played international football. He's played in the Premier League. Yes. Is it worth 30 million? No. That's my only issue. I'm not even worried particularly about the wages, but he would have to take a massive wage cut, particularly obviously with Bowen's negotiations and Tommy Souček's negotiations. If we offered him 100, whatever it is, then anywhere near to what he was on, then they're going to come. They're going to come crawling, aren't they? With the older, hang on, what's going on here? We need some dollar. So I think I the more and more I listened and I've been obviously an observer on Twitter, watching what people are saying, and there is a divide. And actually I think it's a divide, and it's not a bad thing that some people. Again, it's not a glamorous tie. It's not a glamorous tie, not a glamorous signing at all. If you say who you sign, Harry Maguire, people would probably laugh at you the first time, but I guarantee people laughed when we said we signed Craig Dawson. The trouble is, though, as I said, he's going to cost at least 10 times more than Craig Dawson did. And his real name isn't even Harry. That's his middle name. It's Jacob. So it's Jacob Maguire, not Harry Maguire, which is even worse. I think him coming in could make a massive difference to our centre backs options. I think it can shore up our defence, and I think there's extra. Again, the word experience, but that's what it is. It really is experience. It really is, and yes, it. I would. I mean, look, Leverkusen's probably got 3 better centre backs than Harry Maguire. On paper. Jonathan Tah, they've got Piero Hincampe, and they've got Tapsoba. All 3 of them are probably better than Maguire. Jonathan Tah is probably 15 million quid, half the price of what Maguire would cost. But the trouble is, there's no guarantee he's going to come in and adjust the Premier League. That's the risk you take. That is a risk you take by buying these players in. Now, if there's that's why I've always thought there's going to be a compromise in terms of if we sign 6 or 5 or 4 or 3 or whatever in terms of number of players. In terms, there'll be a mixture of Premier League ready players and ones who are more not a punt, but more. We don't know how they'll adjust the Premier League and the time frame that will adjust to the Premier League. Alvarez, for example, we don't know how if he'll adjust and come straight in, and if we sign him and he should be registered in time for the Bournemouth game. Potentially, would you throw him straight in? I remember last year we bought all those bloody players. None of them started against Man City in the first game. Do you remember? There were, I think, Scott Macker and a few others were on the bench. I think, when arguably Maguire comes in, if we say you sign him today, he could easily fit into the side for the Bournemouth game because he knows the Premier League. He's had his pre-season. And that's what you do pay for. Now that's not for the future. That is for the immediate now. And that's why Moyes is adamant to get him because for him it's all about results now. It's all about his performance now. He knows if he can't afford to go out and buy some, South American centre back and wait 3 months for him to adjust the Premier League because he'll be out of a job by then. We know from experience how one transfer could cause a manager to lose their job. Take you back to the Pellegrini era. Their decision, him and Huselos, to get rid of not renew Adrian's contract, get rid of David Martin. No, they kept David, but get rid of Adrian, send all the kids out on loan, bring in David Martin and Roberto. The signing of Roberto caused Manuel Pellegrini to be sacked. Because sod's law, Fabianski got injured the game after, I think it was. Roberto takes over. Yes, we had the David Martin with the Chelsea thing, beautiful moment. But Roberto comes in. We lose these games. Pellegrini loses his job. I think the signing of Maguire will make or break the David Moyes era, the current one. I think if we get him, I think we've got a solid base. It's going to be boring football. We know it, and there's nothing we can do to change it, unfortunately, at the moment. It will be Moyes ball, and actually probably increased Moyes ball. And I can hear Nick tapping away on his computer from Claret and Booze, going, "What the fuck are you saying?" on his phone. But it's my opinion, and me and Nick have very different opinions about most things. But that's why we love each other. Whereas I think if you don't get him, I think you'll see and actually people go, well, we won't get him because then we get rid of Moyes. Each their own. But I think Harry Maguire is a real key piece of Moyes' season this year. But we'll see. We'll see, won't we? We just don't know. That's the beauty of football. We never assumed for 1 second that Craig Dawson was going to be the colossus that he became. That was a punt, a £3 million punt, not a £30 million punt, but still. Arguably, Maguire is a better player than Craig Dawson on paper. He is. And as I said, I think in the right situation, I think he'd continue and be a very fine player. I mean, he's 30 years old. If you're playing in a side with a deep line, he could probably play for the next 3-4 years. I mean, look at Oggy still going, so anything's possible. Anything's possible. Anyway, I know I'm going to get lots of hate at this call, but I just wanted to get my views out there, and it's just my views of Harry Maguire. Yes, I wouldn't be. I think you definitely could spend your money probably a lot better on other players. I'd argue that they'd be unproven, so there's a risk with them. There's a risk of any transfer. Risk that Maguire doesn't end up being shit, but maybe it's more of a calculated risk with the fact of so many Premier League games under his belt. I don't know. Look, it's yin and yang. No one's right and no one's wrong. That's the way I say it. Everyone's got an opinion, just like arseholes. Everyone's got one. And if you choose to talk out of it, they're shocked to hear, which I tend to do quite a lot, quite clearly. But that's just my thoughts. Anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think. There's going to be a load of comments, I know. And I think there's going to be some who are, looking at Twitter, it's not all one way. There's not one way. I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but I wouldn't say it's all one way that Maguire, we should not touch him with a barge pole. I think the general consensus in my eyes is he ain't a bad player, but not for £30 million. And I think that's fair enough. That's fair enough. But then I look back and look at what I think Thiago went. I said about £33 million was a few. Was like I swear it was like when did he sign? When did Thiago sign? I'm gonna have to. I should have probably checked this beforehand. Thiago Silva. How old is he now? He's the same age as my brother, I think. Yeah, he is 21. And so they signed him in 20, so 3 years. So they signed him when he was 35. He was 35. It's actually almost very close to my birthday. Interesting. Few days before my birthday. So they bought him from Paris Saint-Germain when he was 35, and he's still playing for them now. And arguably that first year he was playing for Chelsea, he was probably their best player, one of their best players. So he's 38, and they paid £35 million for him then. Should have probably just looked at all this myself. How much did they pay for him? Did they pay for it? It might have been his wages. Might be his wages or something. I don't know. I swear they paid like £35 million for him. Anyway, regardless of that. Anyway, so that's my general thoughts. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm sure, no doubt you will. But don't forget to comment, like, share, all that type of stuff. Any breaking news, any people we sign, we'll let you know as soon as possible. Take care. Stay safe. Stay warm. Stay humble. Holly will be on later on, talking to people about their season predictions, which will be quite interesting. And I'll see you guys later on. Ta-ta for now, my friends. Have a lovely, lovely Wednesday. Don't forget to put the bins out if Wednesday's your bin day.